the former deputy from here, Joe Higgins, Claire Daly and Mick Barry, who's here with the Anti-Austerity Alliance, and I have to say 24 other people from around Dublin in particular. And the reason we were imprisoned was because there was a High Court case which issued an injunction against protests which took place against the county councils for refusing to take bins. Why were they refusing to take bins? Because people had boycotted the charges and it said, we're not paying this charge. And the fundamental reason for not paying the charge, very similar to the campaign against the water charges minister, was that if we start paying a charge on an essential service, it will be privatised, and when it is privatised, it becomes the possession of greedy profiteers who behave unscrupulously and will push up these charges to the sky's the limits. And that's exactly what has happened all these years later. I'm sitting here, an older woman, with the memory of that and all of those people who went to prison. Most of them women, by the way. I think there was 15 women in the Docus Centre alongside me at the time. And we were adamant, and it's on the record, that we were fighting this to stop the privatisation of an essential service. That service was introduced in this city and in other cities in the late 1890s because of the spread of cholera, a very infectious disease which spread throughout the cities because there was no refuse service. So the local authorities brought in a refuse service, collected the bins, it was charged for through rates and later on through different forms of taxation. Now I want to go back all that way and say this is where the real problem that we're facing today started. It is the legacy of neoliberal government, most of that under Fianna Fáil, I have to say, because they've been in power for most of the time. But your government have continued it, the last government continued it, and somebody has to call a halt. And for that reason, I've got a bundle of letters here in front of me, and last week I raised this under questions to the Taoiseach. And Enda Kenny didn't seem to know what was going on. And I have to say, yesterday morning or the morning before when it was raised again, he still didn't seem to understand what's going on. He doesn't seem to understand that when you put a 200% increase on an essential utility bill on ordinary households, you may as well crucify them because they find it so difficult to meet those demands. And I brought a series of emails with me here today, which An Taoiseach had asked me to send. I've sent him dozens. And I don't get any reply. I don't get a reply back saying, shock horror, Deputy, that's awful, I didn't realise what was going on. I might get the odd acknowledgement, but people are emailing me on a regular basis every day with the actual statistics which show my bin charges will go, and people calculate these things. They work out the pay by weight, they work out the annual charge because they are working on a budget, on a very tight budget, and a lot of people cannot afford the increases. So you're looking at charges going from 180 to 330, from 82 to 216, from 20 a month to 34 a month. This is unsustainable. And what we are doing here in Anti-Austerity Alliance People Before Poverty, we put a private member's motion which we will debate next Tuesday on the floor of the Dáil, and that is asking for you, Minister, to put an amendment to the statutory instrument that you were about to sign or recently signed when the pay by weight came in, and that amendment should state two things. One, that the service charge or the annual standing charge should be linked to CPI and CPI only, that they cannot increase it by 100 and 200%. And my very last point, that the minimum that you put on the pay by weight should be the maximum, because you know how offensive that will be to people with disabilities and people who have particular needs because of large families.
Thanks, Deputy. Deputy Desi Ellis, thank you.